around me that is begging for the freedom that lives on the inside of you and I to be released unto it. But here's what I believe. So few of us know how to release it because so few of us carry it. And so this is where we find ourselves in this moment. I don't believe that there's anything I can ever preach that'll make you free. Not just by me preaching it. I really don't even believe that freedom is found in any sermon I did. I don't believe, I just really don't. I believe that messages and information and revelation brings you to a place of confrontation that you have to determine whether you want to receive what it made available to you. And there have been many people, leaders, whatever else, that have brought the church to a place of decision about Jesus paying the price for my guilt. Let me properly equate this. There have been many people that had a good baptismal service in the Jordan. But there has been very little of the church that left the Jordan and went to the wilderness. Let me tell you something. Just because you went through hell don't mean you were in the wilderness. Some people go through hell because they asked for it. Jesus went into the wilderness. It didn't just happen. He wasn't under attack. He went there. He said the Jordan was good, but it wasn't enough. The Jordan just told everybody what I had the capacity to do. But I'm going to greatly fail everybody I touch if I don't bring them what I said I was bringing. Let me go to a place that I find my freedom. Because only a free person can make somebody free. Let me press into a place that was really uncomfortable. Let me press into a place that was really unusual. It didn't look like a church service. It wasn't a lot of pretty songs. I was depleted, tired, but I wanted to go to a place in Him. I wanted the freedom that was found in Him. I wanted the power of the Spirit that's located in that place. I want to be able to do what God said I could do. I want to see lives changed. I don't want to preach another message. I want to see people transformed. I don't want a good church service. I want to see people liberated and operating in what they know they can be and have desired all of their life to live it, not somebody just running the aisles. I have seen many of people run the aisles, foam at the mouth, cut cartwheels, fall out, and get up just as bound as they have ever been. Almost made me wonder what spirit they were dancing with. So here's where I'm at. It's 11:58. Y'all normally here to 45 more minutes. I ain't going. God might, but I won't. Last Sunday, let me back up. Starting about 10 Sundays ago, 11 Sundays ago, we began to have service in here when everybody was on lockdown, trying to produce for you a live stream service. And something was found in here during that time of things not looking the way it normally looked. Something was found in here by a few on this stage and by a few that sat out here that had, I don't believe, the freedom had ever been found like that before in here. And I began to challenge them the week before we went back into in-person service, that I know it's hard and it's going to be hard. But now what you've been able to find and hear and press into, you've got to figure out the ability of how to translate that when people show up. Because next week when people show up, it's going to be uncomfortable again because you've gotten familiar with the uncomfortable place you were once in. Now it's going to look uncomfortable again, and you've got to figure out a way to translate that press. You've got to find out how to carry people into the free place that you found yourself. And for 3 weeks, I'll be honest with you, it's been a struggle. It's been weird. I can't, you guys weren't here, but I know it because I remember being in that place, that ark, and then the door opening. And it was just weird. And for 8 weeks, 9 weeks, there was no congregation and just a worship team. Now, ironically, we find ourselves where there's a congregation and no worship team. And the reason I believe that this becomes so strategic, last Sunday, I had been telling our worship team and our leaders that had been here during that time, be free to be free. When you guys weren't here, the 20 people that were here were everywhere. The singers were singing out here, and the band was everywhere, and people were moving. It was just a freedom of worship. And all of a sudden, somebody showed up, and that freedom of worship became uncomfortable. And it was locked down. It went back to looking like church service. And there wasn't nothing I could do because I knew it, but I couldn't do it. And last Sunday, all of you guys dismissed. And there was about 3 or 4 of the congregation that had just kind of stuck around worshiping or maybe talking. Our worship team was here, and they were continuing to play. I went out and greeted everybody and told them bye and shook hands and kissed babies and everything else. But the sound never ceased to resonate from in the building. So I came back in. And I came back in and began to lift my hands and not saying it, I did it, but when I got back in here, things just began to unfold. And last Sunday, we had people coming in from the mall, worshiping with us. Tommy said he stood kind of at the door and just worshiped, but he also kept an eye on things. He said there were probably 100 people that never made it inside, but they stopped outside and just listened. It's a spirit that wants to be free. We had 2 ladies come in. They were literally down for the day visiting their father from Charlotte, but they came in and spent time with us. This young man right here, I don't mean to embarrass him, but this young man right here, 21 years old, was walking by, and I didn't even notice, but Wednesday night he said, I ain't been right in months. I ain't been living right in months. He said, I walked by and just sensed the Spirit of God, and I had to come in and worship. God declared a word to me. He said, Jason, he said, the banquet table has been prepared and the invitations have been sent to the assumed guests, but they have rejected it. And so now I will draw them from the highways and the hedges. And we had a work. We did not leave last Sunday until 2:30. And while I was sitting right here, just worshiping, and I didn't know how. I didn't know what was going to happen. But I heard the enemy get angry. And I sensed the attack was coming. I did not know it was going to come in this form. But I think God had a little bit to do with that too. Funny enough, on Wednesday night, Tommy, I laid it over to him because I've just been tired. I said, Tommy, can you teach? Tommy, ironically enough, on Wednesday night talked about worship. I hijacked the message at the end like I often do. But really it was in responsibility, laying out a responsibility to the people. That we have to be spiritually mature and aware of what's going on in the air over this place every Sunday and Wednesday that people are trying to come in. That we can't just be, we can't just assume the normal warfare that takes place where it's, we're trying to do a good thing and the enemy doesn't want it to happen. But when you begin to look at the dynamic of this place, there's spiritual warfare taking place in a race realm. There's spiritual warfare taking place in a placism realm. Because let's be real, some churches just got money, and then some churches just don't. But you often don't get a lot to have both. Every ism you can think of, sexism, poverty, anything that you can think about. And in all of that is this cry for freedom. People scared because of sicknesses and diseases. I understand, I'm not making light of that, but people are afraid, begging to be free. And somebody has to walk into this place every week with the awareness of what's going on, not here, but here. Knowing that there are people that are coming. And it may not even be necessarily the people you think. You may think it's somebody new. It could be somebody that you thought had it all together in the kingdom, and yet they've never been free. And you assume too much, believing that they've been free and they've been liberated and they've been let go and their bondage has been gone. And the truth is they've been coming here for 4 years and they're just as bound as they've ever been. It could come in the form of somebody you ain't never seen before, like a 21-year-old young man. But the truth is that there's an invitation that has been sent. And there are things in the world that have been waiting for that invitation because their spirit is begging to be free. And it wants to come to a place where when it walks in the doors, whether it ever gets a message or not, it gets a spirit of freedom. And I'm here to tell you, truth is what lays the foundation. And so the word has to be given. But it's the truth that builds. You could not live in your home unless it had a foundation under it. It would crumble. The Bible even says that. It lays out construction schematics. It says if you build your house upon a sand, it's going to fall. But if you build it upon a foundation called a rock, it will stand regardless of the storm. And so there has to be a foundation built. Truth builds the foundation that the Spirit dwells in. But if there is no freedom of the Spirit, it's just law and not freedom. And as they read the book of the law, they read it with a veiled face, with ignorance. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror, became the reflection of the glory of God. Being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. Therefore, since we have this ministry, what's our ministry? We have this ministry to be the mirror, the reflection of the glory of God. As we have this ministry and we have received mercy, we do not lose heart because the outpouring is coming. So here's what I'm challenging you to do. This is how we close this thing out. I need you to be willing to worship in the most uncomfortable worship environment you've ever been in. I need you to be willing to worship and worship with freedom when there ain't nobody leading you into it. I need somebody. You may look at me and laugh and say, this ain't the kind of church I signed up for. That's fine. But the ones that'll say, I'll press in. The ones that'll say, I'm going to press in. I'm going to worship. I'm going to show God. I'm going to worship him in the most uncomfortable places I've ever been in. God, I'm going to push myself to the side because it don't look normal. I ain't got somebody helping me do it. I ain't got the lyrics on the screen that's going to tell me the words to say just so I can follow along. Now you have no inhibition whatsoever because you don't have a worship team to perform for. Can I tell you something right now? That sometimes their inhibition is when they don't see you doing this, and your inhibition is when you just see them doing this. And we missing the Spirit of God because we're relying on somebody else to carry us to that place. Here's what I know is that God is trying to challenge you to press in, because if you can do it in here when there ain't been no worship team and we just throw on some kind of music, then you can do it at home. You can do it in your car. You can do it in your floor. You can do it in your closet, at your work. You can do it somewhere, because here's the thing. Freedom, remember, is not located. It's brought. And so when people come each week wanting to be free, somebody's got to bring it with them. And so they need to walk into a house that understands how to bring that freedom with them, and you brought your worship, whether it sounded good, looked good, smelled good, or felt good. You brought your worship because you realized that somebody came begging to be free.